And yeah, hello and welcome to all of you to the first interview of the CYW Fair interview series. Today we have with us my amazing colleague Valentina Cesare, who has just finished her PhD at Turin, and she has done some stupendous work on something which is which is revealing what dark matter might really be, and that is on a theory of, of refracted gravity. So uh, and as this is the first interview of 2021, I would like to wish you all some very good health and hope that all of you are fine. So yeah, uh, and thank you once again for joining us today, Dr. Cesare.
Thank you.
So yeah, let's start off then. So our first question is, uh, yeah. So like, did you have an interest in sciences from your early childhood days, or did the interest develop more deeply in your middle or high school days?
So I had interest in, science since I was a child. So when I was a child, I like to read the book about planets. I read it more and more times because I was fascinated about planets. And when I was a child, also when I was actually very very young, I was a baby. My mom told me because I don't remember. Read me a book about general relativity. So probably at the time when I was two, I did not understand anything, but maybe something was absorbed in my mind. So, and then when I was at the elementary school, I generally said I wanted to be a teacher. Then I changed. At the secondary school, I said that I wanted to become a nuclear physics, even if also at that time I didn't fully realize what was a nuclear physicist. But then, yeah, I loved all the subjects, but in particular math, science. Then at the high school, started to do physics, so I like it more and more. And at the high school, I realized that I have done something of scientific. So, and then the very last year of the high school, I decided that this scientific subject would have been physics. So, it is a history of development.
That's a very fascinating tale, and one which is very fitting of a great fair system, obviously. So, so my next question is: when did you decide that you would like to become a scientist? Like when did you have this like realization that yes, you want to make a career in science?
So I decided. I really decided the last year of the high school because I was thinking about it was the last year, so I had to think about choosing a faculty. So I was about chemistry or engineering, mathematics, physics. Then I went to the faculty of physics, the physics department in Turin, and they hold a master class about this was about particle physics. And before I also participated to a physics stage about cosmic rays. So then I decided, and there was also another very important factor that were my parents because they are both physicists, and I was also fascinated about their jobs. So then I decided to follow their steps.
That's amazing, literally. And like kudos to you and your parents both. And actually, that leads me to my next question. So like you told that both of your parents are physicists. So like, what was their exact reaction when you told them that you also want to become a scientist and just like them a physicist?
They were happy. They were happy because they always left me free. So I think they were happy whichever subject I have chosen. But when I told them that I wanted to be a physicist like them, they were particularly happy and proud. So
That is great. Absolutely great.
we have many subjects to talk each other.
Yes, and like just a kind of an auxiliary question. So like you are a cosmologist. So like, are your parents cosmologists like you?
So no, my mom did a thesis about climate physics. So it is about yes the sea in particular. I also did thesis in Venice, and my father is more theoretician. He did the thesis with Dr. Tullio Regge, and now he's working with the satellites. So,
That's really cool. Absolutely. Uh, so my next question is like, most of the people who get into sciences, are called nerds. We like to, usually see some cartoon shows or like read comics or stuff like that. So like, was there any childhood cartoon show or like any TV series or a movie which like greatly influenced you towards becoming a scientist, or like, at least, motivated you, like you wanted to become a scientist by like seeing them?
okay, so in particular, a movie, I don't know, but when I was a child, I also watched a program, a TV program called The Quark, that now it is Super Quark, where it talked about naturalistic documentaries or satellites. So there is a part of science, a part of medicine, part of animals, so many different topics about science. Actually, not only science, also history, but it is, yes, a documentary. And I watched it also when I was very young. But then, besides TV, also books were important. So a book that I read many, many times is literally translated The Wizard of Numbers. It is written by a German author, and it is really great. There is a guy that does not like math. This is more about math, but so it is scientific. And then there is a little devil that teach him math and make him love math. So it is amazing. I read it since I was very young. And then this other book about the planets. When I was at the elementary school, I liked to read this book, and I learned by heart all the parameters of the planets, the diameters, the rotation period of each planet in the solar system. So I was fascinated about the planets, the space.
Yes, and that goes to show that you had a great amount of passion for physics from the very start. So, so like talking about motivations, many of times there is some kind of a teacher in school days, who motivates us towards, exploring our career options. So, like, was there any teacher in school days, who motivated you greatly towards, exploring sciences and in particular physics?
Okay, yeah, there was a teacher and I had her unfortunately only for 1 year at the first year of the high school. She was my first physics teacher of the history of my career, and she was very motivating, very enthusiastic about her subject. Every student loved her, so she did a very important contribution. So and then also the other teachers of the high school were good, so make me love the subject. And then there is the most important teacher, the teacher that lived in my house with me, so my mom. So she a very important and motivating teacher.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So, like, you told us that that like you read a book about numbers when you were young. So, like, were you always interested in mathematics while growing up, or like, did this infatuation grow very strongly uh, as more gradually your interest in physics grew?
No, I was always interested in mathematics, so I liked to do uh, exercises, math exercises at the elementary, secondary, high schools. When I had to do homeworks, I liked to start from the math exercise also during the holidays. So I also felt them like a challenge. So it was uh, almost funny to solve some problems. I liked in particular the program of the high school, so studying function, derivatives, integrals. Uh, so it was an interest that I had always. I liked the math from the first moment I started to go to do math. Yes.
That is great. And you like doing math exercises, and like that sentence, will give chills down the spine of 99% of school students across the world. You like doing math exercises. But like, yeah, that is the sign of a true physicist, because math is a part of our business at the end of the day. Yes. So like, on to my next question. Then obviously after high school you started your bachelor degree. So like, were there any other classes which interested you greatly in your undergraduate days besides the physics and mathematics classes which you took in your degree?
So actually, other classes not about math and physics is quite difficult because the program, the only other subject as an undergraduate that the only other classes that I attended as an undergrad were the computer science ones. So I had a class about different programming models. And then there was like a course about the history of physics that I began. But yes, in general, actually, in general, I would like also to listen about conferences about history or philosophy, but only for my personal interest, not about class, because I did not had any occasion to attend as an undergrad other classes besides the math and physics and computer science ones.
Yes. And like, it is very interesting that you like history classes of physics, because we are sure that you will be in the history books of physics, thousands of years from now. So, yeah. So on to my next question. So like, you obviously took loads of math classes as a physics student. So like, what math class fascinated you the most in your undergraduate days?
So I liked the very first math class I attended. So geometry and linear algebra. It was so different from the math I attended so far. So before the high school were only like exercises with logarithm, exponentials, functions, and this was a completely different math. And it was the very first course that I attended in the physics department, and I remember they filled blackboards and blackboards with the formulas written in this new formalism that it was completely foreign for me. So, and there was a lot of theorems and demonstrations, and it was difficult because it was the very first. I was at the very beginning. I was 19 years old, but it was also fascinating. Yes.
Absolutely. And like continuing from the last question, what was the physics class which fascinated you the most in your undergraduate days? And I know that this question is going to be the toughest one till now.
So there was a class that fascinated me a lot. It is a course about climate physics. That was my first passion when I entered physics. I wanted to take after the undergrad a master's about climate physics. So I wanted to follow this course and I liked it a lot, but there was also my other love, so astrophysics, so a course about, it was called the Physics of the Universe that I attended my third year as an undergrad. And then it was a battle, an interior battle, because I liked both the climate and the universe physics, but at last the universe won. So, but I still like to listen some lectures about climate physics.
Yes, absolutely. And we are sure that there is one particular climate thesis you are always fascinated by, right?
Meteorology, for example.
Yeah. So, like, talking about the universe, you work in cosmology. So, when did you first encounter tensor calculus and differential geometry, which are basically the mathematical cornerstones of the general theory of relativity of Albert Einstein? And they have been conventionally, made as some kind of monsters, which are the last obstacle someone has to clear before understanding why all the documentaries that they saw as a child, that space-time curvature and stuff like that will be finally written in equations. So like how was your first experience with tensor calculus and differential geometry?
So I did not use them as an instrument in my research analysis, but I only um, met them during attending classes. So I encountered them in general relativity course, also in some courses in the bachelor degree about special relativity, Hamiltonian, Lagrangian physics. So it was, yes, another completely new form of mathematics, and it was a completely different language that I was not used. So, but yes, I understood it. I did the exams. Then it is not the formalism that I'm continuing to use, because I'm I'm working more than in cosmology. I don't really work in cosmology, but more on a galactic scale, and I do modeling of real data. So I'm doing a different formalism. But yes, I have to admit that the first impact was like, wow, what is this? But then during the course, I understood it, and I got used with it.
Absolutely. And yes, that is the childhood fascination of everyone who wants to do something for the cosmos. R mu, G mu, T mu, and mu mu. Yes. So yes. So basically, my next question is again about your undergraduate, but like it is something which is different from all the questions till now. So like obviously you are a researcher. So, like, did you pursue any research projects in your undergraduate days? And if you did you also continue those projects in your grad school?
So in my undergraduate, I started the only research project I started. It was during the project of my bachelor thesis. So it is a project that it is different from the research I did after doing the master and doing the PhD. I investigated the instabilities of astrophysical, of magnetic hydrodynamic in jets, astrophysical jets. I did the two-dimensional simulations. I visualized the jets with the software visits. So it was a thesis about a project about plasma physics. And I performed this research with Professor Mignone, and it was a very exciting project. Um, and I also liked a lot the course of plasma physics that I attended during the master degree. Then my research then followed another path, but the interest remained. So it was the very first actually research, small research that I did, and I like it a lot.
Yes, yes. So, like from that, it is clear that you have a very diverse, set of skills in physics, and that is amazing. And like you said that you did simulations as part of your project. And obviously simulations, consist of, doing loads of programming. So like, what was the first programming language or computational tool that you learned? And like, do you use it till this day, even after your PhD?
So the very first computational tool I learned is Wolfram Mathematica. It is one of the courses that I attended in the first period of the first year of at the physics department, and I'm still using now to do plots for visualization and analytic calculus. And then the second one and the main programming tool for my analysis is C++. So C++ is the main tools that I used during my PhD, and I'm still doing now, using now together with the C. So
Okay.
C++, I learned C++, and now I'm using also C.
Okay then. And yes, yes. So like, as soon as you said, Mathematica, my face blew up because Mathematica is, hands down my favorite tool. So, that's why the next question is pretty hard. And it is that, what is your favorite computational tool?
So my favorite is still C++ because yes, it is the one with which I grew as a physicist and computational astrophysics. So the one with which I had the first experience, and I found myself very well. And many people tell me that it is very good to start with C++ because when you learn C++, you can also easily learn other languages like Python or R, which are simpler than C++. And indeed, I liked also R, that I had to use in some occasions. And for examples, for also for visualizations, corner plots, and also Python, which is very good, for example, for visualizing corner plots. I did a lot of Monte Carlo Markov chains, so corner plots are very important, and also visualizing them is very important. So I liked in particular these languages, but my favorite, if I have to write a program to do an analysis, I would choose C++.
So C++ wins hands down, right? Okay, then. So, like, we discussed about, one teacher in your high school days, which is like greatly influenced you. So now moving on to your bachelor days, was there any professor whose research, really interested you and fascinated you? And if there was one, how did their research interest and interactions that you had with them influence you today as a physicist?
So there was a professor that he's called Miguel Honorato, that did a very interesting course about fluid physics, and I like it very much. And I also attended the course always held by him at the masters about nonlinear waves and turbulence. I like it very much. Then I did not perform my research about this topic because I wanted to do something more astrophysics, but I really enjoyed these courses. The courses about turbulence was the last one I attended, also the last exam I did, the physics exams, and it was a really great last exam because I never relaxed so much in preparing an exam because I really enjoyed it, and he was very good in explaining. So it was a pleasure to attend his lessons. Then this professor, even if it was not he was not my supervisor, helped me with some computational tools during my master thesis. And then there is also Professor Andrea Mignone, which was my bachelor thesis supervisor. He also had a course of plasma physics and the master that I attended. And then also he provided me with some computational tools that were very useful also during my PhD. So it was an important contact that I was lucky to. So I was lucky to have continued to talk with him or to work with him, even if not directly.
That is amazing. Absolutely. Uh, and like finally, basically now we are coming to the part of your research, and I think this is the part which will be appreciated the most by all the Cosmo freaks who will be watching this. So you work a lot on the so-called modified theories of gravity. So like, can you just explain the core idea behind all these wonderful branches of theories which have been put forward in this subfield of cosmology?
So yes, I can. I try to explain it briefly. So, in the universe, one of the most outstanding questions is that the only visible matter is not sufficient to explain the mass energy budget of the universe. In particular, if we consider the validity of general relativity, we cannot explain the 95% of the mass energy budget of the universe if we assume the only presence of visible matter. So if we assume the validity of GR and we adopt the standard cosmological model, we need two dark components that are dark energy and dark matter. An alternative approach would be to assume that the only visible matter is present in the universe and that all the discrepancy that we observe are instead due to the fact that in certain regimes, general relativity breaks down and a modification of the law of gravity occurs. So the real theory is a modified theory of gravity with respect to GR, and GR is only a particular case of this modified theory of gravity that, and we retrieve it only in some particular regimes, like, for example, high acceleration or high density regions. Then the majority of the theories of gravity were built to mimic the effect that in GR is due to dark energy, namely they are aimed to explain the accelerated expansion of the universe. A smaller group of theories of modified gravity were instead built to mimic the effect that in GR is due to dark matter, and among these theories there is refractive gravity, the one I investigated. And then as an even smaller group of theories were built to mimic both the effects at the same time of dark energy and of dark matter.
That is like really amazing. Like you are basically unraveling the secrets of possibly 95% of the cosmos, and like hands down to you. uh, so so like a lot of your work has heavily centered around finding the realism of dark matter. So like, when did you start to get interested in unraveling the secrets of dark matter, and like what fascinates you the most about dark matter?
So the most fascinating thing is like the mystery. So it was one of the most outstanding mysteries of the universe. So investigating this dark sector, investigating if there is an additional fluid or there is not. So it is quite yes, fascinating, tantalizing. So it it attracted me, yes, this idea of mystery, and also yes, to unravel the secrets of the cosmos in general. In particular, I was attracted by the rotation curves, so this fact that it is expected by Newtonian gravity that the external regions of galaxies would rotate more slowly with respect to the observations. So these are all questions that we have to answer. So if there is this additional form of matter that makes them rotate faster, or if instead this is due to a modification of the law of gravity.
Yes, the passion in your eyes for dark matter is like really clear when you were like giving that answer, and like kudos you for that. So like you have worked on a new theory which attempts to basically see whether dark matter is actually there or not. And that theory is a refracted theory of gravity. So like, can you explain this theory in simple terms to us, and like how it attempts to solve the whole dark matter puzzle?
So yes, so refractive gravity is a non-relativistic theory of gravity, is a classic theory of gravity that tries to mimic the effect of dark matter without resorting to it. And in particular, it's the modification of the law of gravity depends on the density. In high density environment, Newtonian gravity is recovered, whereas where the density goes below a critical density, which is one of the three parameters of the theory, we observe deviations with respect to Newtonian gravity, and in particular an acceleration boost that in Newtonian gravity is explained by the presence of dark matter, whereas in refractive gravity is explained by a gravitational permittivity, which is a monotonic increasing function of the local mass density, which appears at the first member of the modified Poisson equation of refractive gravity. So in refractive gravity, we have different behaviors of the gravitational field in spherical and flattened systems. In spherical systems, we observe in the external regions an enhancement where the density is smaller than the critical value, an enhancement of the gravitational field with respect to Newtonian one, but the trend of the gravitational field is always Newtonian. So the inverse square law continue to hold. It is only the field that is magnified with respect to the Newtonian one, so an effect on the modulus, but not on the trend of the field. Instead, in the external region of flattened systems, the field becomes proportional to the inverse of the radius, as in Newtonian gravity, when there is the presence of dark matter, but the acceleration boost that in Newtonian gravity is due to dark matter, in refractive gravity and the external region of flattened systems is due to a bending, to a refraction of the field lines toward the plane of the system. So for this, the name refracted gravity, where this refraction occurs in every system whose geometry deviates from the spherical one. So it is a theory that depends on the value of the local density and also of the geometry of the system.
So like so like basically in conclusion, you have like shown that in order to explain how 23%, like at least 23% of the cosmos works, you have basically changed quite a bit Newton's fundamental laws of gravity, and like done this amazing stuff, and like tremendous kudos to you for that. That's like stupendous. So yeah, yes, so like yes, so like currently we have a ton of cosmological puzzles at this moment in time, right? We have dark energy, and besides that, we have these wonderful new things which have came from the data, like the sigmoid tension and the H naught tension. So like, does a refractive gravity have any implications for these kinds of other cosmological puzzles besides dark matter?
Okay, so far the investigation of the theory were more oriented on galactic scale. So we investigated the dynamics of disk and elliptical galaxies, and there is an ongoing project about cosmology. So a covariant version of the theory is being developing by, not by me, but by my PhD supervisor and his ex-student. So they are developing this covariant version of refractive gravity, and they are doing some preliminary works with some preliminary encouraging results about 1A supernovae. So I hope that he will be able to solve this important tension with us, one of the main problems in cosmology. So so far we still don't have the answers to these problems, but I hope that as the theory seems to work very well on galaxy scale, it will continue to work well and solve the tension on cosmological scales.
That is amazing. So, so basically, refractive gravity can be the theory which all of the cosmologists were like looking for all these years, and like you have become one of the experts in that theory in the whole world, and yeah, that is tremendously amazing. So, moving on a bit from your research things, we saw that running is one of your big hobbies. So like, do you think it has helped you in being a productive physicist?
So it is running, yes, it's one of my biggest hobby, and I admit that it helps a lot because while I'm running, the mind is free, so it helps me to relax. Um, to like empty my mind, and this helps because maybe some ideas that maybe before I was trying to look for a solution to a problem, trying and trying and also getting tired without finding a solution. Then if I decide, sometimes I bravely decide, because sometimes I would like to continue to work on this problem, but I realize that I need a break. Then when I go running, I free my mind, then I come back home. This might be very productive, and then the solution comes up after some hours of relaxing, running in the open air, in the park, now in this season among the flowers.
That's amazing because that reminds me of the story of Theodore Kaluza. You know, I think you have heard of it as well, but like nonetheless, for all the viewers in the audience. So basically, Theodore Kaluza was he was basically a mathematician, but like he did some great physics work as well. So basically, Kaluza gave a kind of an extension of GR, and the story goes that when he was basically he was swimming, and then he started running, and then he just sat down under a tree, and like he had a Newton moment, and he started thinking, yeah, let's make 5 dimensions, and let's basically incorporate GR into the framework of electromagnetism. So like in that sense, Dr. Cesare with us can be the next Theodore Kaluza as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
So yes, the better ideas comes out when we relax.
Yes, absolutely. So and the next question is quite a pivotal one. So basically, what would be your advice to young female students who want to make a career as a scientist today? Because you have done great work as a scientist, in your very early career as of now, and you have collaborated, with people from across the world. So, like, do you believe the science community is like becoming more increasingly inclusive and diverse?
So for the young female students, my strongest recommendation would be to always chase your dreams. And if someone tells you that you cannot manage to do something, or that it does not worth to do it, do not believe it, because it is not true. So women are as able as men in doing science, and you don't feel discouraged by anyone. And moreover, science, it is very important. It involves many different fields, and can bring important progress in different aspects of life. So it needs both women and men scientists. So it needs both, and allowing only to men to work in science would be as we have planets and we exploit only the half of its resources. So women are really important and can make the difference in science. So, and moreover, it is also, other than important, it is always extremely fascinating and stimulating. So, like for me, working in science is not only a job, but also an entertainment. And it is true that to reach the objective, you have to study hard. But during the path, your knowledge is enriched by very interesting concept. And then after you reach the goal, the satisfaction is so great that you will understand that it was worth it. And instead about the science community, I think that the situation today is certainly improved with respect to about 30, 20 years ago. For example, at the University of Turin, maybe there is not still a 50-50 factor between men and women, but there is a quite balance among students. The situation certainly depends on the country or the area of the world, and I think that in general, also in Italy, the situation is more unbalanced at the teacher's level, or even more, unfortunately, in the top position, where still much more men are present with respect to women. And sometimes there are also some prejudice, but I think that inclusion is becoming step by step more evident. And also many men professors, like my PhD supervisor, Professor Diferio, give messages about the importance of the role of women in science. So also men professors are trying to transmit positive messages to enlarge the inclusion. So I want to be optimistic.
That is quite an...
And the future generations can make the difference for further improve this inclusion.
Yes, that is quite an inspirational answer, and I'm sure everyone in the audience will be very motivated by that. So, so now we have a couple of questions from our young students. So basically, when we announced about this interview, we had two questions from students. So the first question is from Jibril, and he's from Zambia. And he asks you, and this is a very interesting question: what would you be doing in your life if you were not a physicist? So, like, what career would you take if you were not a physicist?
Okay, so if we're not a physicist, okay, so probably. So now I would say I like computer science, so I'm doing a lot of programming, also started GPU programming, so maybe a computer scientist, or maybe also if you asked me this question in the high school, I would have said maybe a chemistry, or also a sea biologist. I liked also very much the sea, so studying water animals. So maybe in another life I am a sea biologist. So these would be interesting alternative careers.
Yes, yes, yes. And the second question is like equally very fascinating, and this has been asked by Kel, and he is from Australia. So he asks you, do you believe in the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics?
The
many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. That interpretation that there are an infinite number of universes, and that all the possibilities that a quantum system might have are satisfied in some universe or the other.
So the possibility of the existence of infinite universes.
Yes.
So it would be possible. I'm a person that I'm watching Also, this is serious with the multiverse, so I'm fascinated by this idea. So of possible realizations of the universe. It could be also not only science fiction but also reality. Maybe in fact in another universe there would be another different Valentina Cesare that is doing completely different things. So it could be possible.
Yes, absolutely. And like speaking as an inflationary theorist, I hope that this is possible, right? So yes, so thank you, Jibril.
I hope I can visit also the other universe.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And like I hope that in some other universe, I'm finally playing for Chelsea. Yeah, yeah. That is me. Uh, yes. So thank you, Jibril and Kale, for your questions, and thank you everyone for watching this. And the biggest thank you of the day goes to Dr. Cesare for taking some time from her very busy schedule. And I didn't say this at the start of the interview, but like she has just started a postdoc at uh, at the observatory in Catania. So congratulations to you for that as well.
Thank you very much.
And we hope that you continue to do the kind of wonderful stuff that you are already doing in your scientific career. And someday you might get a very small mention in your Nobel Prize acceptance speech.
Thank you very much.
So
I'm honored, and thank you to Dr. Trivedi for interviewing me.
yes, so thank you everyone, and bye bye.
Bye. Bye.